So, tonight's topic, how to help 50 million Americans finally get a good night's sleep and watch your practice thrive. So this is probably a bit of an ambitious goal, but the National Sleep Foundation estimates that there's about 50 million Americans who aren't getting a decent night's sleep every night. And they need your help, and I want to help you help them. So, you're in the right place if you can fill in the blank. Why are you here tonight? Why are you here tonight? Maybe you want to get better at treating sleep problems in a clinical practice. Maybe you're looking to expand your practice. Ken says, learn more about insomnia. Thank you, Ken. Maybe you're looking to help yourself sleep better. Help your husband. Very good. Very good. Diana says, help her husband. Yeah, help her husband. Other ideas. Sleep's important to health. Yep, exactly right, Loretta. Absolutely. And Lucy says, help myself and my husband. Yeah, this is a common theme, right? People come on to sleep webinars and they seek out solutions for people that they love. And probably, you might be in the position where you are working with somebody and maybe it's not the client that you're working with who needs some help with sleep. Maybe it's the person that they love, which is always a good predictor, by the way, for who's actually going to be successful in a sleep program. If you have a supportive sleep partner, then there's a good likelihood that you're going to make some progress working with a sleep professional. Yeah, Marla says ADHD clients have trouble shutting off their brains. Marla's an expert ADHD and executive functioning coach. You live longer if you get the right amount of sleep. Exactly, Ken. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Integrate into wellness coaching. Yeah, Lucy. Fantastic. Excellent. 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 So, yeah, everybody's got your own reasons for being here. If I'm not addressing what you need, you let me know because I really want to address what you need. Right? So here's what I intend to show you tonight. What I really intend to show you, and I'm going to move fast because I got a whole lot that I want to get to. Right? I'm going to show you why people need help sleeping and why learning sleep skills makes sense for your practice. How to easily identify your client's sleep problems, how to rapidly get your clients sleeping better, rapidly. Right? And finally, at the end of the call, you want to stay on to the end because I'm going to show you the fastest way to put my sleep skills system into action in the next 30 days. So, a lot to cover. All right? So who's ready? Does that sound good? Does it sound like I'm getting ready to tell you what you came here for? You can just type a little yes into the chat box. I need a little positive reinforcement. There we go. Yes, yes, yes. Look at all, a million yeses. All right. Fantastic. Good. It's 8 o'clock. People getting sleepy, especially old people like us. Yes. All right. So we want to be active. I don't want to just lecture to you the whole time. Here's the step-by-step approach in a nutshell. All right? In order to be a sleep pro, in order to really develop the sleep skills that's going to make a difference in people's lives, my system says that you've got to understand sleep, assess sleep, okay? Understand how sleep works, figure out how you're going to assess people's sleep, create a great sleep space. Environment is definitely important. Some of you probably have snoring spouses, and so you know the challenge of a good sleep environment if you have a snoring spouse. Yeah? Protect your sleep space. The best sleep space in the world won't do you any good if you let other things interfere with it. Deal with bedtime worrying. Worry in bed is a huge problem. It's one of the reasons why women really suffer with insomnia. Men as well, but worrying in bed, and worrying is one of the most vexing problems that we deal with. Keeping a sleep schedule. The fact of the matter is that we are really designed to sleep at night on a schedule. And so if we can keep a sleep schedule, that's a big step in the right direction. And pay back sleep debt gradually. It's no surprise that most Americans are sleep deprived in some way, shape, or form, and there's a million reasons for that. We could get into a whole sociological lecture, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it very practical. But those are the steps in the system, right? Obviously, we can't get through all that tonight, but I'm going to try to send you off with the basics that you can put into play and get the job done, or at least get some progress made toward getting the job done. All right, so before we jump into too much, I want you to just take a second and get ready to learn. All right? I know it's hard on a webinar. I know it's hard when you're looking at a computer screen that's in a little browser window to stay focused on the browser window, even if it's just for an hour. Most of us, even if we're watching a television program, we just don't have the experience coming home from a day at work in the evening when we're tired of focusing on just one thing. We are so adept at multitasking. That's a whole other topic right there. How to stop multitasking. So I want you to get ready to learn. I would like for you, much as I would ask you to do with a client who needs help sleeping, I would ask you right now in this moment to take control of your learning environment. Take control of your environment. If there are stuff around you, things around you that are going to distract them, cover them up or put them away. Right? If you think that you're going to want to get up and get something to drink in the middle of this hour-long presentation, we will go longer than that, I'm sure, with Q&A. Then get something to drink now. I have a beverage with me right here. It's good to keep your brain nice and hydrated. If you need something to write with, get it now. Right? I want you to get ready to learn. Now is the time for it. The sidebar can be a little bit distracting when you're in the chat box sometimes. If you want to chat, type in questions there, be my guest. It's not going to bother me. Okay? I have noticed that somebody has hit the Q&A button, and I would tell you that hitting the Q&A button isn't the best way to communicate something. The system is a great system, but that's not the best way. Best way to get a hold of me is to put something in the chat box. I promise you that I will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So what I would ask you to do is when you have a question, jot it down on a piece of paper, and then when we open it up to Q&A at the end of a call, I will stay on this line as long as I need to answer any questions you have. I will not leave until the last question is answered. So don't feel like you have to answer it right now, and I will keep the recording going so that if by chance you need to get off at some point, you want your question answered, write it down, type it into the chat box. If you leave, I'll answer it. It'll be in the recording, and I'm going to send you a copy of the recording. So don't feel like you need to take copious notes. I'm going to give you a copy of these slides. I'm going to give you the video, access to the video of this so that you can watch the whole presentation and listen to it again. I'm going to give you an audio version of it. I'm going to give you all of this stuff. Okay? And you can go back and listen to it for reference or use the notes for reference. And I've got more handouts than I've already sent to you. So get ready to learn. I'm going to go through things fast, and hopefully you're going to get a whole lot out of it. So let's take off. So why me? Look at that handsome gentleman right there. You got a color picture of me on your screen. You got a black and white of me. I don't know which one is best for publication in GQ. Either one is fine, but she knows something about me, I suppose. A couple of things that are important, I think, is that I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a PhD in clinical psychology, and for those of you unfamiliar with that, that means I am trained in both the research and the practice of psychological science. I'm trained as a researcher. I don't do a whole lot of research because I'm a community college professor. I don't have time for it. But I can do research. I have done research, published a little bit. Not my thing at the moment, but I'm more into the application of things. But I read the research very critically, and I definitely have, as part of my value system, empiricism. I like the science aspect of things. I am a college professor. I teach community college at Germanna Community College in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I'm a professional coach, which is a little bit different than a psychologist. In clinical psychology, I'm working with people with psychological problems, and so that might mean a formal diagnosis of insomnia, and I will treat that one way. Alternatively, as a coach, I may be more focused on helping people get better sleep as opposed to resolving a specific psychological problem. Here's the good news for those of you who are coaches or therapists or both. I am sometimes wearing my coach hat. I'm sometimes wearing my psychologist hat. I don't let the two mix, but I am a licensed practicing psychologist and a professional coach who practices. You can use what I'm teaching you tonight to work in either domain. If you're a coach, you can take these things and you don't have to worry about doing therapy without a license. If you're a therapist, you don't have to worry about coaching people and applying your therapy skills inappropriately in a coaching relationship. You can do both. I'll always have both hats on. I love being both a psychologist and a coach. And I specialize in the treatment of anxiety and sleep disorders. Originally, it was anxiety disorders, and over the years, I became very interested in sleep. That's a bit of a long story that I'll get into if you're interested, but you're probably not. If you're going to be learning from me, you should probably know something about my values. Okay? My basic premise, my argument that I make when I am teaching people, when I'm teaching professionals, is I believe in personal development, professional development, and practice development. I feel very strongly that you should never be the professional helper of any sort who's unwilling to do his or her own work. So I think if you're learning sleep skills, you should be applying them in your own life. No judgment, no judgment. I'm not saying that you're a hypocrite if you don't, but I think it makes you a better professional. Of course, professional development, we all know what that means. It means enhancing our skills so that we can be of better service to the people who hire us. Simple as that. And practice development. One of the things I'm very much focused on in 2015 is helping people have a more thriving practice. A lot of us are in situations where we don't get paid enough. We don't have enough of a thriving practice to really give us a good quality of life. But how many hours are there in a day, right? So I believe that the best type of training is training that you can apply simultaneously to your personal life as you're developing as a professional, and that you should choose professional development opportunities strategically so that they can build your practice. There's very little point, I don't take this the wrong way, but practically speaking, I think there's very little point in learning skills that you probably won't find someone to treat. I sometimes tell the horror story of how I wrote 2 doctoral dissertations. The first doctoral dissertation was a treatment study, which was an absolutely brilliant study designed to treat pathological hair pulling or trichotillomania. The problem with that study, which was eventually canceled, is we couldn't recruit enough clients. There just weren't enough people who had the bravery to come forth and get treatment for their problem. So if you're going to invest in professional development, it should be something that you can use in your practice. My values with respect to training are those 4 things. Transparency. I'll tell you everything. I don't believe in holding anything back. There's no trade secrets. There's no, I can't tell them that because then there might be competition. I have no tolerance for that. I'll be fully transparent with you, including if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I won't make it up. I commit to you to that. I will find the answer and I will get back to you. Relevancy. This is not an academic lecture. I don't mean for it to be one. I have no intention of making it that. This is things I'm going to teach you that are going to be relevant to your working with people. Right? There's a place for theory, absolutely. Okay, but in 1 hour we won't get to it. Right? I'm trained as a scientist, but right now I'm fully a practitioner. Effective. I have very little tolerance for strategies and techniques and ideas that are not born of clinical science. So I am not going to be giving you all the references, for what I'm saying tonight. But I will commit to you that there is a reference, a good science base for everything I'm showing you. I don't teach things for which there isn't a good scientific foundation. And lastly, continuing education. All right? I believe education should be lifelong, and I think it's part of our ethical responsibility to be continuously educating ourselves and honing our skills when we're in the business of helping other people. How does this apply tonight? Well, I've told you pretty much that I'm going to try to present you with some really relevant, practical, effective strategies, And so in the spirit of transparency, of course, I'm going to offer you at the end of the seminar tonight an opportunity to work additionally with me in a continuing education fashion. I have a program that I'm going to offer to you, and I hope you stay on to the end. I can't provide you with everything you need to be a real sleep pro tonight, but I will give you enough that you can go out and hit the bricks and make a difference in your sleep tonight and in your client's sleep tomorrow. So I hope that you stay on to the end because I've got a special thing I want to show you that'll be really supporting your continuing education. So my argument, what am I here for? What do I really believe about sleep? A couple of things. Sleep deprivation is an epidemic. There's no getting around that. It's a huge epidemic. I also put forth to you that if sleep was easy, no one would complain about sleep. But people complain about sleep all the time. All the time. I would also argue that people are willing to pay for sleep. We hear often that people aren't willing to pay for certain things. People aren't willing to pay for this, that, or the other thing that we want to do. And there's certain things that probably people aren't motivated to pay for. But I think people are willing to pay for sleep. Competent coaches and therapists can learn sleep skills rapidly. Again, I'm making an assumption here that the coaches and therapists that I want to talk about are competent. If you have basic coaching and therapy skills. Okay, but the great thing, the fantastic thing about sleep is that it's the hidden gem of the psychological science world. It is the hidden gem in terms of empirically supported treatments. It is so straightforward and so powerful and so easy to learn. People with solid skills who want to put in a little bit of time and effort and energy can get really good really fast. I would also argue that sleep skills can help your clients thrive regardless of why they've come to you, because sleep affects almost everything, and almost everything that people come to you for help with is in some way being influenced by sleep. And sleep skills can help your practice thrive. Those of you who know me locally where I live and work, there's some of you who are on the call tonight. Some of you don't know me. I've never dealt with insurance companies. For almost 10 years now, I've had a completely fee-for-service practice, and I always have a waiting list. Now, to be completely transparent, this is not my full-time gig. I'm a full-time college professor. But I will tell you that my part-time clinical practice is a greater part of my income than my full-time college teaching. Part of the reason that exists is because I choose very strategically what I offer, how I offer it, to make sure that I meet the needs of people in the community. So, sleep skills is a huge part of that, and it can definitely help your practice thrive. Again, not a research presentation, but I want to give you a little bit of a background for why I say this. What is the evidence for this? Why do you say all these things, Kevin? Why these arguments? Most of this data comes from the National Sleep Foundation. The National Sleep Foundation is a tremendous resource if you're not familiar with it. sleepfoundation.org. I'll give you that address again at some point. Every year they do what's called the Sleep in America poll. It is a very well-designed survey. They poll a lot of people. They gather a lot of data. And it's a really nice snapshot. I'm thinking about hockey. A snapshot of what America's sleep habits look like. These numbers are pretty consistent from year to year. About 30% of adults have symptoms of insomnia on a regular basis. Insomnia, briefly defined, is simply an inability to fall asleep, stay asleep, sleep in as long as you like, or experience a sensation of refreshment after getting sleep. 30%. 10% of adults have insomnia that is severe enough to cause daytime consequences, meaning they're falling asleep on the job, they're having problems driving, they're getting ill more frequently, they have poor concentration and attention. And unfortunately, this is true even of high school students, where unfortunately, and again, this is a lecture for another day, but we start requiring middle school students who need more sleep, at least a good 9 hours of sleep a night. We start getting them up very early when they should be sleeping in biologically, according to their circadian rhythms. By the time they get to high school and they start driving, they start having automobile accidents. And most people are surprised to realize that most automobile accidents in high school students occur in the morning on the way to school, not late at night. So morning fatigue is a huge problem. And for those of you who are therapists or psychologists, a whopping 60% of clients with a psychiatric diagnosis suffer from insomnia. 60%. That's a big deal. It's a big deal because most people I talk to would never think that 60% of their clients suffer from insomnia. Further, most clinicians think that insomnia is simply just a secondary problem, that once you treat the primary problem, the insomnia gets better. I will tell you that with the majority of my clients, I start them out in treatment, working on their sleep. I don't care what you come to me for. Sleep is simply the small hinge that swings the big door. If you can help your clients sleep better, even those who don't have insomnia, if you can start getting them more sleep, their lives will turn around. You think people aren't willing to pay for sleep help? You know, according to the CDC, it's a little hard to see the dates there, but that's a recent article. It's within the last year or two. 9 million Americans use sleep aids, prescription sleep aids. That's a lot of people. A lot of people whose sleep is so bad, they went to the doctor and got a prescription. Of course they're willing to pay. Of course they're willing to pay. The most effective treatments for insomnia, no matter how severe, is essentially a 4-session treatment. A 4-session treatment. If you think about the average person who is well insured when they go to the doctor to get a prescription, in the first month of treatment, they're probably spending at least $50, probably closer to $75 or $80 for their visit to the doctor and their sleep prescription. And that doesn't count everything they've done previously to try to work on their sleep problem. It's a huge, huge problem and a huge practice opportunity. Even Time Magazine, 2 years ago, ran a series of articles on what they called the sleep industry, why we're paying big bucks for something that's free. And you can even see that in the title there's this assumption that sleep should be free, it should be easy. Why would you even pay for it? If you look at the fine print there, you could see that in 2008, because they pulled some old data, the date of this article is 2013. But in 2008, they estimated $32 billion spent on sleep. So, if you're concerned about there being a need for sleep help, I hope I've satisfied you. So there's some big myths. Here they are. Let me discredit them for you very quickly. Sleep problems are rare. I think I've made the point to you that they're not. But most people think that they are. To the point that most clinicians and coaches don't even ask about it. They don't even ask about it. Another myth is that people know how to get good sleep. Sleep is one of those things that everybody thinks they know about. In part because we devalue sleep, but people think they know how to get good sleep when they really don't. Working into us out doesn't count. The other problem that I just mentioned is sleep isn't all that important. You know, as a culture, we really devalue sleep. And so people are genuinely unaware of the health risks of not getting enough sleep. That's an issue. That's a myth, and we can debunk that. But unfortunately, that's a myth that a lot of professionals hold as well. If professionals thought that sleep was all that important to their work with clients, they'd probably be focusing on it more frequently. But, you know, people just don't know. And, of course, the fourth myth is that people won't invest in sleep. So, look, if I can get this and use it as part of a thriving fee-for-service coaching and therapy practice, then so can you. I don't know about you, okay, but I didn't learn this in graduate school. I didn't learn this anywhere. I learned it by having an interest in, honestly, it was I had children. I wanted to make sure they slept well. And as a college professor, I teach about sleep. It's probably the topic that my introductory psychology students ask the most questions about. They all want a free sleep consult. I kid you not. I get more questions about that than anything else whenever I teach introductory psychology. People sometimes think that because I have doctor in front of my name that I must have learned about this in school, and because I trained in medical settings, I must have learned all about this. I didn't. The effective treatment of sleep is one of the greatest success stories in all of therapy. And today we still don't teach it. So I'm going to teach it to you. Hope that I've stated my case. Let me now dig into some of the problems. Any questions at the moment? Or anything you want to know? Who's ready for some practical skills? Who's ready for the 3 big things that you're going to take out of here and put into play? There you go. Lucy's ready. All right, this is just for you then, Lucy. There you go, Diana. Let's go. All right. Let's go on with this. I'm telling you, I could talk about this all night, but I don't want to take all night. I'm going to get you through this. Here we go. Big problem number 1. It seems obvious, but it isn't. Your clients don't know how to sleep. I always laugh when I say that, but that is a huge problem. They just don't know how to sleep. They don't. Luckily, they've got you. Why is this a problem? I've already mentioned some of this, but I'll reiterate. This is a huge problem because people believe the myth that they should know how to sleep, so they don't seek help. They don't seek help. 30% of the population is having symptoms of insomnia. I guarantee you 30% of the population isn't seeking help. They don't really consider it something that's serious enough to address with a health professional. It's also a problem because of that cultural devaluation of sleep. One of my friends at Virginia Commonwealth University, who's an insomnia researcher, he coined the term the volitional sleep deprivation problem. We as a culture think it's cool somehow when we don't need to sleep very much. Oh, I only need 3 hours, I only need 4 hours. Well, look at you, you're a tough guy. We devalue sleep. And now we have more and more things to keep us awake at night, unfortunately. There's this issue of sleep debt. Sleep debt. Unfortunately, sleep has a cumulative effect. It has a cumulative effect in terms of exhaustion. It has a cumulative effect in terms of metabolism, intellectual functioning, attention, concentration, emotion regulation. Most people are shocked when I tell them. And they say they want to lose weight. They're shocked when I tell them, I'll tell you exactly how to lose weight. Sleep more. It is one of the most effective weight loss systems that I know of. Sleep more. You know? I routinely tell people, if you're not getting enough sleep, and exactly how much you need is debatable, but let's just use 8 hours as a rough estimate, there's no point in trying to lose weight. There's also no real point in trying to go to the gym and get fit because you're probably not going to get a whole lot of good results. Sleep debt is a problem. And just like most debt that people carry around, and we know that people carry around a lot of debt, it's near impossible unless you win the lottery to pay off all of your debt at once. But yet, people think they can do things like catch up on the weekend and make up for sleep. It's like, well, over the course of the week, I deprive myself of 5 hours, so I'm going to sleep in an extra 2 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday, and I'll be all better. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. People engage in these ineffective attempts to resolve their sleep problems, like catching up or using alcohol, and that only makes things worse. It only makes things worse. Now, this is not, there's no judgment here, right? It's not that people are stupid. They just don't know. And most professionals that I work with, coaches and therapists, they've never been taught it in their professional training programs. They just don't know. Most physicians I talk to have absolutely no idea that insomnia is a standalone diagnosis. They think it only exists secondary to some other problem. And they'll attempt to treat insomnia with an antidepressant. Which, fine, if you think that's going to be the real issue, but they just figure out, well, it must be depression. No, it's a problem in and of itself. So it's not your fault. Here's a solution. Sleep education. I will tell you, and again, I know not everybody on the call is a therapist. And I know of the therapists on the call, not all the therapists are cognitive and behavioral therapists. Okay? But this thing that we call cognitive and behavioral therapy is effective. And it tends to be very effective. And one of the reasons, historically, that it's been very effective is that the beginning stage, the beginning couple of sessions of cognitive and behavioral therapy almost always involve psychoeducation. There's a time when you sit down with the client where it is explained to the client, listen, this is what the problem is and this is how it works. And often, clients improve rapidly just with a little bit of understanding. Those of you who work with anybody, you know this. When people understand things, they've got a better shot at changing them. If it's unknown and it doesn't make any good sense, you get discouraged, right? This is why most of us don't fix our cars. It's like, oh my God, like, I'm going to figure out how the car works? I mean, some of you probably are good at that. I'm not good at that. So what do? You explain to people what normal sleep looks like. And real quick, this is just a simple graph that it doesn't take too long to understand. And it doesn't take too long once you understand it to explain it to a client. But once people understand what normal sleep is supposed to look like, usually people have an aha moment. And there's two things about presenting what normal sleep looks like to people that's really eye-opening. One, they have an urge to sleep at times that is biologically driven, and they can't do much about it. That your sleep urge and your sleep need follow a certain pattern throughout the 24-hour day. And they're like, oh, so you mean maybe I can't control my sleep because it's out of my control to a certain extent? Pretty much. Oh, okay. Oh, and so sleeping at night is good and sleeping during the day is bad? Exactly. Oh, I can see. Oh, all right, I get it. Once you take sleep and you demystify it, and there's other pieces that work really well to demystify sleep, people get it. And they go, okay, now I understand what I'm working with, right? So I should probably be going to bed or getting ready for bed when I'm at the peak of my sleep need. Right, exactly. Oh, okay, and I should probably be getting up when my sleep need is resolved at its lowest point? Yes, you got it. Oh, okay. See, once they understand a little bit of that, then they're not fighting against their nature. And they get it. They get it. Right? And there's other diagrams that I use when I'm educating people too. And you can find you can Google most of this. Of course you'll get this with the slides, but people love it. People love it. So that's the key, sleep education. All right? So how can you take action tonight? For each of these problems, I want to show you what the problem is, what the key to the solution is, and the action step that you can take now. Simply provide interested clients with quality sleep materials. Okay? And one of the reasons that I'm offering this webinar and this upcoming training now is because next week is National Sleep Awareness Week, run by the National Sleep Foundation. It's a fantastic time to start a sleep conversation with clients because probably they're going to be hearing about sleep in the news. The National Sleep Foundation does a really good job of publicizing the problem of sleep during Sleep Awareness Week. You can go to sleepfoundation.org and you can get all kinds of quality sleep materials. You can become a sleep expert just using the stuff on that site. When you signed up for this webinar, I gave you a list. I sent you immediately a list of my favorite books. Okay? So in the service of you becoming more knowledgeable about sleep yourself, I sent you some books that are reliable. They're great books. They're not difficult reads. I mean, with the exception of one of those books, they're meant for the general public, but they're all based on solid psychological science. You could take action now by reading one of those books. The handout that I sent you today, a sort of a bonus handout, right, is includes this right here. 4 simple steps for a better night's sleep. One of the most interesting findings from research on substance abuse treatment that occurred back in the 1980s, okay, was people who are suffering with drug problems like to be given options and told what to do. Don't just use some, reflective listening and let me sort of pick what I want to do. No, you need to understand the science of addiction, and you need to really do some things that are useful. And it helps you to take action if I tell you some specific things and give you a menu of choices. This is designed with that in mind, and I gave this to you. Copy it, put your name on it, put your card on it, whatever. I don't care. Take it. Do whatever you want with it. I should just give you the Word document. Anyway, these are things that are very straightforward that most people can understand. It's like, the place where I sleep matters? Yep, sure does. I probably shouldn't watch television in bed, but everybody does. Yep, exactly. I shouldn't be worrying in bed, but doesn't everybody worry in bed? Yeah, but maybe you shouldn't. And keeping a sleep schedule. I just go to sleep when I'm sleepy. This is maybe why you're not getting enough sleep. We're all able to stay asleep more than what we should be sleeping, more than we should be staying awake. So I gave you this so that you can just hand it to your client and say, here, if you can do any of these things, take one small step, you're moving in the right direction. Right? This is part of your sleep education. So what would the next steps be in terms of your own professional development? Actually become a sleep expert. Spend some time actually studying sleep so that you can be able to answer your clients' questions. Right? This is one of the biggest things that I find hold people back from developing a new skill. They're afraid that they're not going to be able to answer their clients' questions. Well, those of you on the call who are coaches, we know that we don't always have to be the answer. We don't always have to be the expert. We don't have to have every answer to every question. Well, those of you who are therapists on the call and you feel guilty when you can't be the expert 100% of the time, let me officially grant you permission to take off the guilt hat. Don't worry about it. It helps to become a sleep expert. It helps to be able to answer your clients' questions. But with a little bit of training, and sleep is something that's a sufficiently narrow subject that you could get very knowledgeable very quickly. But more importantly, you could become familiar with quality resources so that if you did have a question, you could go research it and get back to your client. Or you could call somebody like me and say, hey, Kev, I got a client who's going through this, consult. Imagine that. The other thing that you might consider, and this is in the service of practice development, is consider being a community educator, right? So if your clients don't know this, don't know what normal sleep looks like, guess what? People in your community who aren't your clients don't know what this means. And I think this is a great way to build a thriving practice, is to be an expert in your community and to give away your knowledge in a way that's going to help people. So those are some things that you can consider. Yeah, Lucy's exactly right. Explaining to people how sleep work really normalizes the need for sleep. You don't seem like such a failure if you need 8 hours of sleep. The average is about 8 hours. That means some people need closer to 9. All right? That's nothing to be ashamed of. Big problem number 2. Your client doesn't know that she has a sleep problem, and neither do you. Again, no shame, no judgment. It's not your fault. But, you really can't fix what you don't see or ask about. It always reminds me of my time, as a resident training, physicians. And, I would see them in the emergency room, and I'd teach them how to ask the questions about suicide. And they would look at the patient, and they would shake their head back and forth, no, as they asked a question about suicidal thinking. And it went something like, so shaking your head no, you don't have thoughts about suicide, do you? Clearly indicating, I don't want to know if the answer is yes. Here's the right answer. Tell me no. You can't fix what you don't see or ask about. Okay? Now, most coaches are just simply not trained in any sort of assessment, and most therapists were never trained in sleep assessment. Yeah, most therapists, unless you're a psychologist, you probably really didn't get a lot of training and assessment, period. Right? And unfortunately, undetected sleep deprivation and disorders will undermine your work. And that's the point that you really need to know. And again, nobody's probably ever told you that. So again, don't feel guilty and don't feel bad. But therapy is or coaching is a very intense experience. And if you are fighting sleep deprivation while you're trying to help the person change, it really is an uphill battle. So the key to this solution is to make sleep assessment part of your routine. Every single person on this call has some kind of intake or initial assessment procedure that they do with their clients. All I would ask you to do, if you haven't already, is just make sleep a part of that. Find one simple way to work it in. Make it easy. All right? So you're more likely to do something. We all know this from, again, working as coaches and therapists. We're more likely to do something or get a client to do something if we make it easy and we make it routine. Simple. So what does this look like in terms of action? What's the action step that you can take tonight or tomorrow to make this happen? Simple. Ask the question. Perhaps you were hoping for something a bit more sophisticated or earth-shattering. I'm not interested in being, brilliant or dazzling. I'm interested in being practical. Ask the question. Ask the question. And again, now's a great time to ask the question because it's Sleep Awareness Week. You could print out a little flyer off the website. You could have it at your office, whatever. Ask the question. How much sleep do you get on an average night? How difficult would it be to add that to your intake procedure? How much sleep do you get on the weekends? If a person's getting more sleep on the weekends than they're getting during the week, that obviously speaks to a sleep debt that the person's trying to address on the weekends. People usually get closer to what they need on the weekends than what they get during the week. And if there's a big discrepancy there, well, maybe that's something to talk about. Do you wake up refreshed? Now, if you're not trained in the patient assessment for a sleep problem or a sleep disorder, you could just simply ask, do you wake up refreshed? And if the person says, no, I'm always tired when I wake up, it might prompt a discussion. Okay? So look, I told you I want you to be of good service to your clients. Okay? I'm not saying that you have to be a sleep expert. And if you don't ever think about getting any training with me or anybody else on this ever again, that's fine. That's fine. But here's what I would love for you to do. At least have a procedure in place that doesn't tax you in any way, that makes it very easy for you to do, that you could do with all of your clients to at least illuminate a potential sleep problem so that you could then make a referral to somebody who you feel is better suited to deal with the issue. That's it. That's it. So imagine for a second that you've got clients who are sleep deprived. They're sleep deprived, and I'm telling you, if they're sleep deprived in any way, shape, or form, it is hampering your work with them. Imagine you're now able to simply ask the question, get enough information about their sleep to make a referral so that their sleep is now being treated effectively. Imagine what that's going to do for your work. Imagine. Right? I liken it to stress in the environment. Imagine that your client is poverty-stricken. They're on the verge of losing their home. They have real money problems. And then they get a decent paying job or they get a raise. And relatively quickly, their situation starts to improve. Their overall stress level goes down. They start doing better work with you. Or if a client is sick, they're not going to do good work with you. My point is very simple, and that is I want to really challenge you and encourage you to take action on this. Ask the question. You can use a simple sleep questionnaire like the Epworth Sleepiness Scale. I'll send you a copy of that. Or you can Google it, or have patients take it online. It's pretty readily available, and it's just a measure of daytime sleepiness, which, again, speaks to sleep debt. You might even consider sleep tracking. Again, it depends on your level of comfort with regular assessment and self-monitoring. I don't know how you all do this. I don't know what your training background is. But even if it's as simple as just having people write down how much they sleep per night, in coaching we look at assessment and monitoring like that as an insight-building exercise. If a patient doesn't know what their quality of sleep looks like, you might say, well, why don't we talk about it? Why don't we discover it? Why don't we go on a journey and see if we can figure this out? People are generally, in my experience, surprised at how little sleep they get. So those are some simple things that you can do now to really solve that problem of people not knowing that they're sleep deprived. Next steps, increase your understanding of sleep problems and how they present. If you really wanted to get good at this, you can get good at this. There's certain things and there's certain assessment tools and procedures that I can teach you that really help you assess sleep in a sophisticated manner. There's a measure called the Pittsburgh Sleep Index. It's a bit of a semi-structured questionnaire that helps you really get good at assessing a person's sleep problems. And I use a sleep diary with almost all of my clients, especially when we're working on sleep, not always. Where it asks for a lot of detailed information and we can compute certain values such as sleep efficiency that gives us a really good understanding of what's happening with the person's sleep. Again, this is part of continuing education. If you wanted to learn more about this, you could do it through self-study. You could work with me. You could do any number of things. But if you wanted to get really good at it, those would be some of the next steps that would really help solve your client's sleep problems. Big problem number 3. The sleep problems just aren't being addressed and people are suffering. Now, the biggest problem here, right, is that change is hard. It's really hard. You know this because this is what you do. But getting more sleep is hard even for people with no sleep problems, and that's a tricky one. That is a tricky one. Our clients who are depressed, we have ways of helping them deal with their depression. And in positive psychology, we know that happiness is not necessarily the norm. You need to take some steps in order to really enhance the quality of your life. Well, the same could be said of sleep. Even people with no sleep problems, I would say maybe especially people with no real sleep problem, they're often not interested in getting more sleep because honestly, they're not going to get a real lot of bang for their buck immediately. So the motivation to change, that's a tough one with sleep. So, again, it's not your fault. You probably don't even know, most of you, what the real effective sleep strategies are. People will give up when ineffective strategies fail. You know this from your own work. Those of you who are, I know Marla's an ADHD coach. To try to work with a kid who has ADHD, who already coming into the coaching relationship, having a lot of discouragement about school and academic performance, trying to then to do something that's just going to be, pounding the round peg into the square hole, it's not going to work. They're going to have resistance and not going to want to do it. And with sleep, people will give up even when effective strategies don't provide immediate relief. Man, we're always looking for the quick fix. Always looking for the quick fix. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen with sleep. You can go and be sleep deprived for a very long period of time. So asking people to change their sleep, and maybe they're now getting an extra half an hour of sleep a night, they might not be feeling all that different immediately. But boy, after a couple of weeks, everything changes. Everything changes. But again, you might not even know that. So the big problem here is that you got to know the right strategies to use for a problem that people aren't particularly motivated to change anyway. So you got to have effective sleep strategies. And again, you probably don't know them, and that's okay. It's not your fault. People think that they have effective sleep strategies when they really don't, and they make the problem worse. So the key is having effective sleep strategies and support and guidance from understanding and competent professionals. If you want to go down the road of talking about childhood baggage, we can certainly do that. How many kids have a history, how many of you have a history of being fussed at by your parents for not going to sleep? Bedtime battles are probably the norm. Probably the norm, okay? Because most people don't know how to sleep. Do you think that they're going to know how to get their kids to sleep? Come on. Those of you who work with parents and young children, parents don't have a clue how to get their kid to sleep. In fact, having a parent help a kid get better sleep is as difficult, if not more difficult, than what I'm asking you to consider doing, becoming a sleep expert. But somehow, for some reason, we just assume that every parent is going to be a sleep expert, that they'll figure it out. And they don't. They just don't. It's not that easy. Not that easy. So, how can you take action now? Simple. Use this handout. I'm going to go right back to it. These are not just knowledge enhancers, right? This is not just quality sleep knowledge, but these are strategies that are actually designed to work. Proven to work. Proven to work. When you create a sleep space that is cool, dark, quiet, and relatively free of distraction, okay? Now, there's more to it than that. One of the things we do is it's called stimulus control. You know, we make sure that the room is full of cues for sleep and relatively devoid of cues for staying awake. So it's more complicated than that. But again, you could get a client to start taking action, and you could coach them through it. You know, what are the I don't want to fool around. Well, okay, so what are the pros and cons of helping somebody with their sleep? And what are the pros and cons of creating a good sleep space? But I always fall asleep to the television. Is there any reason to consider maybe reading a book instead of looking at a screen? Would you be willing to try it for one night? Again, these steps work. If you can get a person to do any of these steps in any small fashion, you'll see improvement. You will see improvement. And as coaches and as therapists, you know how to support and encourage people to make difficult changes. I know that you do. I know you do. So you can take this handout that I gave you, and you could work with your client. By the way, what do you think, treatment manuals are? Right? On that listing I gave you of my preferred sleep books, there's a pair of books there. There's a patient guide and a therapist guide for the treatment of insomnia. If you haven't looked at those books, it's a 4-session treatment. There's a therapist manual and a patient manual. In cognitive and behavioral therapy, we share the materials, right? We really put ourselves on an even playing field. Same thing in the coaching relationship. So if you present this to a client and the client goes, yeah, you know what, this is attractive, I'd be willing to consider this. Well, then you could set some coaching or therapy goals around it, and you could take action. Now, of course, the treatment of insomnia with cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is far more complex than just those little strategies. But those are a step in the right direction. So you would need sleep training that goes beyond the basics, right? It also is useful to develop a solid understanding of why those strategies work. So, I think one of the beauties of cognitive behavioral therapy is that we have lots of strategies that work. On the other hand, sometimes the application of them can be somewhat mechanistic and a little bit too surface level and simplistic if you don't really get why they work. So a little understanding of behavior modification helps, for example. So again, I've identified some problems. I've identified why they're problems, the fact that they're not your fault or your client's fault, what some action steps are that you can take to really get some traction on this now. Whew. And now I'm sleepy. So, now, I hope that you're getting what you came for tonight. It's 9 o'clock. I presented you with a lot of good information that I think is actionable information. And I'm going to follow it up with more recommendations. I'm going to follow it up with some forms that you can use so that if you want to tip your toe in the water and say, okay, maybe I could try this a little bit, then you can try it. Now, the person that I suggest that you try it with first is yourself. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Diana. Thank you for the good feedback here. I'm glad I'm giving you what you need. Thank you, Wendy. Perfect. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. The medical school model is learn one, do one, teach one. Okay? My motto is do it on yourself, then do it on your client. And then you can market it to others. Okay? Do the work yourself, then apply it to your clients, and then begin to market it as a part of your practice. Okay? What I hope you're seeing is that you've got some things here that you can immediately use and put into practice. So now, as promised, I told you I can't give you everything. What I would love to do now is to tell you just briefly about a program I put together for you, okay, that I'm going to start next week that will be designed to teach you this in a very deep way. 6 hours of training I've got prepared for you, okay? Stay on the line. If you've got questions, I'll do Q&A, but I've got a really, because you're here and you're sticking it out with me, I've got a really kind of special offer for you that hopefully you'll take me up on. Rachel says, I do, we do, you do. Oh, hey, Rachel, I didn't even see you here. Excellent. Good to see you, Rachel. Yeah. Excellent. Cool. Okay, so, look, I'm not sure why you came. We talked about this at the beginning, whatever your reasons are. Maybe you want to work on your own sleep. Maybe you're not helping your clients with their sleep because you feel powerless over your own sleep, right? Maybe you don't want to feel powerless anymore when your clients are suffering. Maybe you need a set of skills that can help you build your practice. You know, how in your practice are you distinguishing yourself from every other therapist? Maybe you need something. You know, I think sleep skills are a great way to do that. You know, and maybe you want to be of greater service to your community and peers. Again, what I'm teaching you tonight, I promise you, what I have taught you thus far tonight, most of your professional peers don't know. You are now head and shoulders above the rest. All right? So whatever your reason, you know, please get this one thing. Right? This is not theory. Right? It's practical and it's evidence-based. I've made a big deal about that, obviously. This is what I do, and it's literally changed the nature of my practice and the lives of my clients. I cannot tell you how many lives it's changed. And for those of you who are coaches who are concerned, I don't think I could do this with my clients, I have success stories from students in my college classes who take what I teach them in a lecture and put it into play. I don't have all semester. I've got 14 chapters I need to cover in a semester. I don't have that much time to talk about sleep. But they take it, they use it, and it changes their lives. And if I can do it, then you can too. I'm not a genius. And I learned none of this in school, not one bit of it. My argument is that you can, in a very short period of time, be in the same situation as me. No, you're not going to have the practice and the clients and people being referred to you very quickly, but you can be. You can get there. You can be a sleep expert. So the obvious question is, how do you apply all this in your personal life? How do you apply this to your professional life? How do you develop professionally? You know, how do you grow the practice using all this information? You know, will you go it alone using trial and error and self-study? And I think that's fine. You know, I've given you good books that you can use to self-train, and then you have to, you know, you can just decide, you know, within your own ethical value system whether or not you feel competent to put that into practice with clients. But I've given you the stuff. It's out there. And most of the stuff that I'm giving you, it's in book form, so it's well organized and convenient. But you can find a lot of this online. Right? You can do this on your own. Or maybe you consider working with me using a step-by-step process designed to get results fast. You've probably seen this before, but this is really how I look at training. All right? Everybody assumes that once they learn a little bit, they'll just be able to put it into play and be successful. But really, it's a little bit squiggly. And it might be nice to have somebody there who is now walking the straight line to help you straighten out the squiggles a little bit. Right? Training does not have to be difficult. Right? It's one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein. Everything in life should be as simple as possible, but not simpler. I would say that learning sleep skills and applying them in practice is elegant, but it's not necessarily simple. But when you have somebody who knows what they're doing and it puts together a training for you that's pretty structured, right, and is based on what works in his practice, it gets a little bit easier. So I promised you continuing education. So what I'm offering you over the next couple of weeks in the month of March is a step-by-step solution. It's what I do to get the best results. It's what I do to build my practice. Take a quick drink of water here. It's absolutely the fastest way I know of to get from where you are to where you want to be. Not that you should try to be like me, but if you're thinking, gosh, it would be nice to be that conversant about sleep like Kevin is, and it would be nice to work with clients like Kevin does, this is how I do it. This is how I learned it. This is what I do. I'll teach it to you, and I'll teach you what works. So what is this program? It's 4 modules corresponding to the 4 essential elements of sleep skills. 90-minute webinar format. So we'll meet on 4 Wednesday evenings from 7:30 to 9. March 4th, March 11th, March 18th, and March 25th. If you can't make one of the calls, it's all recorded. You'll have a recording of the video so you can just sit and watch the webinar just like I presented it live. I'll give you the audio. I'll give you the slides. I might even be able to get you transcripts. Well, I always get transcripts of things. I never read them, so I don't know. Lots of interaction. Plenty of time for Q&A and consultation. Right? I'm not going to be trying to jam in a lot of stuff like I did tonight. I'm going to give you all the forms you need to work with clients. You're not going to have to look for assessments. I'm going to give those to you. I'm going to give you all the support you need. And again, in the service of transparency, nothing is left out. Here's the 4 modules. Module 1, knowledge. Remember the problem of not enough knowledge about sleep? You're going to get your crash course in sleep. You'll learn all about it. Everything you need to know I can deliver to you in about an hour and a couple minutes. Have plenty of time. And you'll be your own case study. Once you understand your sleep, then you'll be able to study your own sleep, and you'll be like, oh, now I get it. And for those of you who are here for your spouse, you can use your spouse as your case study. Module 2 is assessment. Right? You'll know how to assess sleep. You'll get the tools to do it. You'll practice with your own sleep. You'll get the importance of sleep tracking, and you'll practice it. I wonder how you'll practice it. Any ideas? Anybody want to take a guess? I'm not going to tell you to go out and use it with a client right away. How are you going to practice assessing sleep? Lucy says by sleeping. Hopefully. Studying your own sleep, yeah. Yeah, I'll have you tracking your sleep. Now, again, I can't guarantee that you'll do it. Hopefully you will, but yeah, I'll show you exactly how to track your sleep. You'll practice doing it, and then you'll have the confidence. You'll know what it's like to track sleep. Module number 3, environment and behavior. All right? I'm not going to turn you into a behavior therapist. I know that. However, I'll give you what you need so that you'll understand the behavioral piece to this. Checklist and tips for setting up a sleep environment. We'll talk about something called stimulus control. We'll talk about developing sleep habits and sleep rituals. This module here, okay, this is probably the most potent element of it. When you sometimes we do what we call deconstruction experiments, where we take a multi-component treatment like this treatment I'm teaching you, sleep skills. When you break it apart and you look at, all right, what's the piece that really gives you the bang for your buck? It's changing behavior. It's developing little habits, small changes that can lead to bigger changes and eventually to really good sleep. All right? So you'll understand how to gradually change sleep habits and schedules to pay off sleep debt. Oh yeah, and you'll practice it. All right? Now I'm not saying, right, that it's gonna be easy, and I'm not saying that you have to practice it in order to do it, but hopefully you will. And even if you don't suffer from insomnia, I would be willing to bet, if you're like most people, you could stand to get more sleep. Right? Just type in yes for me real quick if you know that you could probably benefit from getting more sleep. You feel like you just don't get enough. Yeah, Lucy says yes, Rachel's yes. Yep, here's all the yeses coming in. No shame in that. No shame in that. And please don't think that I'm the poster boy for, really good, healthy sleep habits. Please. I'm not. I mean, I'm human, just like everybody else. I am, But I do know how to help you get good sleep, right? And so we'll work on making some behavioral changes and some environmental changes to get you there. Module 4, all about thinking and motivation. Now, in the treatment called CBTI, or since we're cognitive behavioral therapy, the cognitive therapy part is probably the most difficult piece to master. However, I don't need to turn you into cognitive therapists. And those of you who are coaches, I don't need to turn you into therapists at all. Whereas the cognitive therapists, like myself, might say we're going to work on, addressing and changing dysfunctional thoughts. As a coach, you could just work with the inner critic. You could just work with limiting beliefs, or whatever terminology you like to use when you're coaching, to help people change the way they think. And if you're coached by, you've had your coach training with me, or you're going through the mentor coach system, you certainly are familiar with the trans-theoretical model. If you're not, I'll teach it to you. Okay, but this is William Miller's model for how people change and why they move through different stages of change. All right? And with sleep, you definitely go from stages of change, from I'm not willing to do it to I'll think about doing it to all right, I'll do it, let me make some plans, and then putting it into place. Remember what I told you about people making their situation worse because they put into play sleep strategies that are ineffective? We want to avoid doing that as much as possible. One way that shows up is by people jumping into even an effective sleep strategy, but jumping into it before they're fully prepared and before they fully committed to doing it. And you don't want to make that error. So Module 4 is about thinking and motivation. How you get people to want to change. Simple strategies for dealing with worry. Simple strategies. Worry is a real tough problem. I've got some strategies that work. Right? You'll have answers for the yes, but problem. Well, yeah, but maybe you should do, yeah, but I don't know. Right. We've all dealt with that with clients. And, of course, you'll practice it. Surprise, surprise. All right, so how much is this going to cost me? Well, last time I did a 6-hour training like this, I charged between $177 and $197 depending on when you signed up. My hourly consulting and supervision fee right now is $197 an hour. And I'm not going to take any on a consulting client because my practice is full anyway. I don't have time for that. My personal training in CBTI was 2 day-long trainings, and it was $600. Day and a half, $600. Not cheap, but important to me, so I did it. So this is going to cost you only a fraction of that. All right? I'm going to enroll people into this class, these 4 modules, these 4 weeks for $154, not the typical $179 to $199. And when people enroll, you'll immediately get access to all the tools, right? All the forms, the handouts, the sleep information to give to clients, anything I got that I can think of to give you on the front end that's not going to confuse you, I'm going to give it to you. And you're going to get immediate access to our private Facebook group. If you're not on Facebook, okay, well, you should probably join Facebook. But I have a private Facebook page set up where there's the files. There'll be the links posted, right, to everything that we talk about, to all the recordings, all right? And most importantly, I'll be in there answering your questions. I don't want the learning to just be on 4 Wednesday nights. I want it to be whenever, if you miss it, you got a question, you listen to it later and you got a question, or you're working with a client, or there's something you don't understand about, a form, you can jump on there and you can ask a question, and I'll be in there and I'll be answering questions all throughout the month. It drives me nuts when I give a client some sort of self-assessment, self-monitoring tool. And rule number 1 of a self-monitoring tool, whenever you give it to a client, never just give it to them. Always fill out like a day's worth of data right there in the office to make sure that they get it, or else they won't. But I'll do that with a client. They won't get it. And then like a week will go by and they didn't do anything. I'm like, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you text me or email me or something? All right? I don't want that to happen to you. All right? I want your learning to be continuous throughout this process. All right? So you can look online at that PZ or any of these other places that offer trainings. $154 for 6 hours of training is pretty spectacular. But, here's the big but. All right? I've got more stuff for you. I told you I was going to hook you up for coming on the call with me tonight. I'm going to schedule 2 monthly follow-up calls, one in April and one in May. Okay? I know as well as you know that even if you jump in and you put all your effort into this and you go to, you're online for all 4 calls and you're doing the homework in the month of March, you're getting stuff done, life gets in the way, something's not going to get done. And some question is going to come up when you start to implement this with a client. I don't want you to have any kind of awkwardness. Oh, God, should I call Kevin? Should I not? He's charges all that money for a consultation. I don't want to bug him. You can always bug me. But I'm going to schedule 2 follow-up calls, one in April, one in May, where I'll be on the call for 90 minutes. You can call. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. Submit questions in advance. We'll take care of it. All right? 3 months of ongoing support in the private group. Right? So, okay, so I'm probably not going to be posting materials unless there's a request for it. I mean, the training part is done in March, but I'll be there. I mean, I'm willing to commit to you to being there, checking in every day, March, April, May. One of the reasons I administer these programs on Facebook now is because everybody's on Facebook, you know, and there's that little globe with little red thing shows up in the in the right-hand corner, and you got to click on it to see what people have been saying about you. So you can jump on and tag me in a post, just ask me a question, and I'll have my little red thing will go, and so I'll go in and I'll tag you back in the response, and you'll get your questions answered. I want you to learn this stuff. Here's another thing I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you all the help you need to implement this over time, but I'm teaching a course now called Referral Mastery, where I'm basically teaching people how to write referral letters and make referral requests. And I think the templates that I'm using there for referral request letters, some of them, would be really good to help build your practice. It's a nice way to just simply let people in your group or community know, hey, if you have clients who are struggling with this, here's something that I'm doing. It might be you want to do just a one-night workshop, similar to what I'm doing tonight. It might be that you want to run a group, a 4-session group where you teach people how to sleep better. So I'll give you some skills that might help you market. And again, that's what I know of at the moment. But anything you need, I'm happy to give you. 50 million Americans aren't sleeping. Okay, obviously I can't work with 50 million Americans. I want you all to do it. I want people to get better. And all the psychological science is great, but if people don't use it, it's useless. So anything you think you need but I missed, I'll give it to you. Transparency, right? And you don't have to come up with $154 right away. You can pay in 2 installments. All right? And here's my guarantee. Come to at least the first 2 meetings or listen to the recordings of the first 2 meetings. If after the first 2 meetings you're not getting what you